Brian Bayo was the best starting pitcher on the Boston Red Sox roster in 2023. But who was at the bottom and who was somewhere in the middle? Join me on today's episode of Locked On Red Sox, where we rank all the starting pitchers from the 2023 season.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast, here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, straight to your favorite podcast feed, Monday through Friday for free. If it's free, why not listen? Thank you for tuning into the show and making it your first listen of every day. You can also download the SiriusXM app and make that your last listen of every day during baseball season. If you just search Red Sox within the app, you can get the home broadcast of every game straight to your feed, so you don't have to miss a single pitch. It's very exciting, so definitely do it. The Boston Red Sox in 2023 had a very up and down season in which they struggled in multiple capacities, and pitching was the most glaring weakness on that team, primarily the starting rotation. There were some good moments, some bad moments, and some in-between moments. But on today's episode, I'm going to be ranking the 2023 Red Sox starting pitchers. But first, I have to make a quick announcement that the Red Sox have officially hired Cubs executive Craig Breslow as the head of baseball operations. He has accepted the job, so hopefully he'll do a good job to really recreate this team and help find its identity back, to set it back up on the winning track and allow the team to find a way to compete and be a contender in 2024. Tune into tomorrow's episode, as I have a special guest, formerly from Barstool Sports and now hosts another pretty famous Red Sox podcast, coming on with me to react to that news and what he can bring to the team moving forward. So be sure to tune into that episode. But first, this Red Sox rotation was very up and down. And the question is, who was the worst pitcher in that rotation? Who was the best pitcher in that rotation? I'm going to be ranking all of the starting pitchers on this Red Sox team from worst to best. Now, I know there were quite a few bullpen games mixed in there, especially towards the end of the season, because of injuries and pitchers not being available when they were supposed to be used. So there were guys coming out of the bullpen and starting games. So I didn't incorporate them for the sake of this into the starting pitching rankings. Be sure to tune in next week to the show, as I will be doing an episode ranking the bullpen and the pitchers who relieved more this season. But this criteria to me is pitchers who started the year in the rotation and primarily were starters. So at the bottom, I have to go with Corey Kluber. I mean, this guy was an absolute mess who just should not have been signed in the first place. He couldn't contribute in the rotation or in the bullpen. He had an earned run average of 704 to finish the season. He wasn't fully healthy all season, sure, but there's expectations that come with being a guy like him who had such a good career before that. And I wasn't expecting or asking for ace caliber stuff from him, nor did I think that was going to happen. But he does need to be able to provide some sort of value in a positive manner. And he was just not doing any of that. Every time he was on the mound, it was a complete mess, whether that was when he was starting or he was relieving. There was always an issue with Corey Kluber out there, and it just took away the chances of the Red Sox winning those games the majority of the time, because yes, they have a strong offense, but you can't expect the offense to be on par every single night. And if you have a pitcher who's consistently giving up a lot of runs and is constantly trying to compensate for it or make up for it, that's just not going to work. And it's not fair to have put Corey Kluber out there as much as the Red Sox did and expect the offense to compensate. So he is at the bottom of the bottom for me in terms of starting pitchers that primarily started, but for him, just really couldn't figure it out no matter what position he was in. So he's number 8. Number 7 for me is Garrett Whitlock. I'm a fan of Garrett Whitlock, but not as a starter. To me, Whitlock needs to be a reliever who comes and pitches out of the bullpen because he brings his best stuff to the table out of the bullpen. He had a wishy-washy season in 2023, 515 earned run average at the end, which isn't terrible, but is also not great. And the more that the Red Sox push for him to be a starter, the more I worry that they're going to ruin what he has and what he provides. So I am not really a fan of them continuing to push for him being a starter. He's a reliever to me, and that's where he thrives the most. So he'd be a lot higher on the list had he pitched more effectively in the role he was in, and he had a couple stinkers out there when he was starting. So I think the Red Sox should keep him in the bullpen. He did get injured during the season and was trying to work his way back. So obviously that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. But in general, he should relieve, and I will always stick to that. Number 6 on my list is Chris Sale. This poor guy has just really been through a lot with this sport. He just can't stay healthy anymore. Couldn't stay healthy throughout the course of the season as it was. He just was that guy who might have a good start here and there, but then would back that up with a pretty bad start the following one. So he ended up ending the season with a 4.30 ERA. And he did have some decent starts mixed in, but most of his starts were not great. So I ultimately ended up not trusting him anymore. I just stopped that altogether, which is sad because not too long ago, we as fans would all get really excited when it was Sale Day and Sale was pitching. But now at this point, I'm not there anymore. He just is a very average starter at this point in his career. It's sad. The injuries definitely play a big part in that, and not being able to consistently be on the mound, throwing live pitching to hitters, and really actively seeing what goes on, in a full season, because it's been a while since he's been able to be out there for a full season. If he had been able to stay healthier and kind of get himself together, he definitely would be further up the list, because he showed some glimpses of the Chris Sale of old in a couple dominant starts. But overall, he was very rocky and was giving up a lot of runs, and it just made it difficult to feel like he could be reliable anymore. So maybe they try to move him in the offseason. I'm not seeing it. I think they just keep him until the contract is up and just let it be for the next year. But I mean, I just wish this guy was able to stay healthier, because it is truly just irritating, to say the least. Coming up, I'm going to be revealing my next set of starting pitchers in the Red Sox rotation, kind of the heart, the middle of where I see them stand. So that's coming up next. It's the holiday season, and we all love good Thanksgiving meals, but they're expensive. How does free Thanksgiving sound to you? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make your Thanksgiving table complete. Because who wants turkey without the gravy? Turkey is great, but we all know the best part of Thanksgiving dinner is the sides. With Ibotta, you can make sure you get the whole family's favorite side dishes and the turkey, all while getting yourself cash back. I mean, Thanksgiving is pricey. I had a Friendsgiving last year with my main friend group at somebody's house, and everybody had to contribute something to it, and we divided it up evenly so that price-wise everybody was in the same range. But at the end, when I saw the total of what everything costs, I said, wow, that's so expensive. I can't imagine providing this whole meal on my own with how expensive it is. Ibotta giving you cash back on that stuff is an absolute blessing. Starting November 1st, for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Download the Ibotta app now and use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code MLB. Anytime you can get cash back, especially this time of year with the holidays and people spending a lot of money, you absolutely should take advantage. So Ibotta is the way to go. What else is the way to go is the Sirius XM app. Just download the app and search Red Sox, and you don't have to worry about missing a single pitch of Red Sox baseball. Just search the team in the app, and it'll generate the home broadcast of every game for you, which is a fantastic thing, by the way, because then you don't have to stress about missing anything. And it's a great way to pass time if you're on a long road trip. I remember last summer, my fiance had some baseball trips in places that were a longer drive because he coaches a travel team in the summer. And when we were in the car, I got so bored. I don't like to be in the car for a ridiculously long time because I start to feel nauseous and I just get bored and I don't know what else to do with my time. But being able to listen to the Red Sox game on the way helped pass a lot of the time. So you should look into it. Just download the app for free and search Red Sox and you can get the home broadcast of every game. Talking about the Boston Red Sox 2023 starting pitchers, there were a few rocky players in there. Hopefully they can weed out some of these players and just focus on developing guys in their system and acquiring outside guys who are reliable and can eat innings and aren't going to be all over the place. I think that would be what the Red Sox primarily need, and hopefully they can address that. But they did have some highs in their pitching staff. And going back to my rankings of the pitching staff, particularly the rotation, number 5 on my list is Nick Pivetta. He was not somebody I would have guessed would have had the contribution that he had in the later half of the season. He did struggle at the beginning of the year when he was being used primarily as a starter, but then when he got moved to the bullpen, it was completely a different Nicky P. I mean, what I saw from him, I was like, this is unreal. Like, who is this guy and what has he done with Nick Pivetta? It was so cool to see. He had that end of season surge that brought him a little higher up on my list. He needs to continue to do what he's doing. When the Red Sox utilize him in the right way, he could be very good for this team. And I think it took a while for them to figure out where he's most comfortable and how he fits in best. Because if I'm Nick Pivetta, that's a huge confidence booster from pitching so well out of the pen and just having a historic outing out of the bullpen one night and being able to look back and say, I feel more comfortable in that role and it's a different position for me, but I like it. So the Red Sox should take that as it is and play him in the pen more so than using him as a starter. And I get bringing him back into the rotation at the end of the season in 2023 because the Red Sox were down starters due to injuries, but he shouldn't be a regular starter. He has his best stuff out of the bullpen, similar to Garrett Whitlock, but he had a better convincing later half of the season than Whitlock did. So that's why I had to put him above Garrett Whitlock. Next up on the list, right above Nick Pivetta, is a pitcher who surprised me this season in James Paxton. That first half that he had was unbelievable. He was super reliable and just one of those starters who was usually consistent and you could trust and rely on to go out there and get a win when he was on the mound. He was coming off of an injury. He obviously was feeling great. His confidence was at an all-time high because he had just recovered from an injury that he had missed a whole year of baseball for. So he was probably really excited to get back onto the mound. So for him to go out there and just absolutely shove, considering the circumstances, is actually pretty remarkable. And I'm just so excited that he had that first half of the season that he did because I held out hope. When the Red Sox signed him, I said, yes, this is a low risk, high reward signing, and I'm hoping the high reward comes because he is the type of pitcher that we had seen in the past what he can do, and what he could do was be somebody who was very effective, near unhittable when he was at his best. And then injuries just started to plague him in his career. So it allowed him to take a huge step back, which was a bummer. So I knew we weren't getting the James Paxton of old because that Paxton was just long gone. But the Paxton that we got in that first half of the season was something that I wouldn't want to replace. However, I would want to replace his performance in the second half. Around the All-Star break, he started dipping down. His numbers decreased significantly, and he was at the point where he was just giving up a lot more runs, looking a lot less confident on the mound and comfortable, and he was starting to throw the ball all over the place. So I don't know what happened or how it got to that point particularly, but my guess would be because he hadn't pitched a full season in a long time. So it was starting to take a toll on him, and his arm was starting to get to the point where he couldn't handle it anymore because he just wasn't used to putting up those types of numbers on the mound and having to pitch as much as he was. So I think that was the main factor in all of this. But I also think another factor was just that he was starting to get more and more comfortable with certain pitches, and opposing hitters were figuring that out because in the first half they hadn't seen him in a while. So they were able to figure out as the season went on, you know, who James Paxton is and why he used to be as good as he was. So in that first half, when things were still fresh and players hadn't seen that, he was putting up better numbers. And then as the season progressed, opposing players were figuring him out. So I think those are the main reasons why he dipped down in the second half, which is why he dropped down in my rankings a little bit. But I still think based on that first half that he had and the fact that nobody expected it, he should be kept right in that middle of the pack. Number 3 on my list is a pitcher who also suffered an injury this year, just like so many other people in this pitching staff. But when he's on, he's really on, and that's Tanner Houck. He still needs to go deeper into games. I'd like to see him continue to develop that over the next couple of years. But he has that nasty slider that is basically unhittable. And prior to getting injured and missing some time, he was typically able to be relied upon in a lot of different situations. He was used out of the bullpen. He was used as a starter. I don't have a preference either way. I mean, I think him pitching 2 or 3 innings out of the pen long term could be very beneficial because he's able to effectively pitch for 2 or 3 innings and doesn't have to worry about, you know, having these distractions going on, like facing an order for the 3rd time or just getting really frustrated because people are stringing together hits that they aren't doing in the first few innings. If he's only pitching that small sample size of 2 or 3 innings a game, he wouldn't have to worry about seeing an order the 3rd time because they most likely, unless he gives up a bunch of runs in 1 or 2 innings, wouldn't be going through the order 3 times in that short of a time span. So that could be where his strengths are, but I also on the same token see the benefits to having him be a starter because he is one of the better starters that the Red Sox have, and I trusted him more than some of the other starters. So if they do have him start and they consistently get about 5 innings out of him. I can't really complain about that. Would I like to see 6 or 7 from him consistently? Yes. Can he get there? I'm not overly confident that he can. It seems to be maybe a mental thing that he throws himself off on the 3rd time through the lineup. But overall, I really like Tanner Houck and I trusted him a lot. So I have to put him at number 3. Who are my number 1 and 2 starters for the Boston Red Sox in 2023 that I really looked at as the go-to guys? That's coming up next. Are you ever looking to be prepared in a medical emergency? You never really know what's going to happen in this world between things like hurricanes or tornadoes in Florida, the COVID-19 pandemic, unrest in the Middle East. All of these can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in a timely manner. Nothing's scarier than being in a situation where you can't leave and go get medicine that you need. So the Jase case is your solution. Jase Medical basically offers a Jase case, which is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase Medical now offers customizability for your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. I love Jase Medical because they're always looking for ways to take care of their customers and making sure you have everything you need to feel safe during an unprecedented situation. So head to jasemedical.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off when you purchase your Jase case. Also, you should download the SiriusXM app because you can get the home broadcast of every Red Sox game straight to your feed so that you don't have to miss a single pitch. And honestly, I wouldn't want to miss a single pitch in 2024. I'm expecting a much more exciting season. So if you don't want to miss any of the action, just download the app and search Red Sox. And on days where you can't sit and watch the game, maybe you can listen to it on there. So be sure to download that app today. There were 2 starting pitchers in the Boston Red Sox rotation in 2023 that really stood out to me as the go-to guys. These were the 2 that I felt like were the guys I could trust the most in the rotation and the guys that I felt like consistently kept showing improvement as the season went on. Now, am I saying they're a 1-2 punch? Absolutely not. I think they're more of like a 2-3 punch or even a 3-4 punch. And the Red Sox do need to acquire 1 or 2 starters this offseason. But from what they had and what they were working with, I think these 2 were the best pitchers on the team. So my number 2 starter that is on my list is Kutter Crawford. I was not super sold on him early on. And I think he still has more to work on and more to prove in his ability level, but he showed tremendous improvement and development as the season went on. I mean, he went from down here to all the way up here by the end of the season. And Alex Cora seemed to trust him a lot because sometimes he would stretch him out a couple times when people thought he should have been pulled from games. And I like that because he does need to develop that longevity and get used to pitching deeper into games. So I liked that Cora would stretch him out to kind of get him those reps, and he would trust him. Even if he gave up some base runners, Cora wasn't quick to pull him immediately and put in somebody else. So it showed that he was willing to be patient with the kid. And it's so much different during the regular season than obviously in the postseason or even early on in the regular season when you're not trying to prove yourself to put yourself in a playoff spot. So for Kutter Crawford, he was able to keep his composure during those situations when he would have base runners on. And it seemed like Cora was more willing to sacrifice some runs to get him acclimated and give him more confidence. And I like that because at the end of the day, baseball is a marathon, not a sprint. And if you lose that one game, okay, there's 162 of them. And if it was you needed to win that game to clinch a playoff spot, he probably wouldn't make that decision. But sometimes it's good early on to sacrifice one thing so that that pitcher can be set later on. And because Coro did that a couple times, I think it really instilled some more confidence in him that, hey, my manager believes in me, so I can do this and I'm confident. Number one on my list is the kid I've been saying has been the Red Sox best pitcher all season long is Brayan Bello. He was the most consistent starter all year. I knew for the most part what I was getting from him. He is not an ace, but he was the Red Sox ace in 2023 because he was the best pitcher that they had. He did end the season with a 424 earned run average, but that was really bumped up because of his daytime starts. Those are really what killed him. He was fantastic at night and just didn't pitch well at all during the day. So that's something he's going to need to figure out. I don't know if it's the environment during the day versus at night and it throws him off, or if it's his routine is thrown off during a day start and he has an abbreviated workout routine before he gets into it. I don't know which one of those it is, but it's something, and hopefully he can learn to just make those adjustments, and hopefully whoever they bring in as the new pitching coach can help him make those adjustments to grow during the day during those starts, because he truly has the potential to eventually be an ace and be maybe an all-star caliber talent. He has the potential there. We've seen it. He just needs to figure out how to best utilize what he has and be able to pitch more consistently during the day. Because if you only take his night starts, he was a pretty unbelievable pitcher. And I give him the award for best starter on the Boston Red Sox in 2023 because you can't really ask for much else other than having a starter go and pitch 5 or 6 innings and really be that go-to guy who is always relied upon and for the most part does get the job done. So I'm a huge fan of Bello. I think he has more work to do, but he absolutely has the potential to be what Red Sox fans want him to be. And that is hopefully eventually an ace caliber player. So he is my number one starter in the Boston Red Sox rotation. He, as of right now, is about a 3. The Red Sox should treat it as if he's the number 3 starter and go out and acquire a real number 1 and a real number 2. Because if you have an ace and then your number 2 guy, that 1-2 punch, and then you have Bello after that as number 3, that's a good looking rotation because then you can slot in maybe Kutter Crawford there at 4 and then Tanner Houck, or depending on what direction you want to go, maybe just sucking it up with Chris Sale for another year in his last year. So you really can go a lot of different directions with that number 4 and number 5 guy. But if you have those 3 pitchers at the top of the rotation that can really nail it down, that's all you really need in the playoffs. I mean, yes, you'll have other players who will throw and come into games, but if you know you have 3 reliable starters, that can get you very far in the postseason. So hopefully the Red Sox make the right kinds of moves this offseason to improve that pitching staff. Welcome Craig Breslow to the team. Be sure to tune into tomorrow's episode when I will be diving into analyzing that decision that the Red Sox made and talking to a special guest about what he can bring to the table moving forward. So tune into that. As always, keep the faith. Let's go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.